Okay, people, so it seems as though Dragon Ball Super Chapter 80 got the people buzzing, and we definitely need to talk because some people are calling BS, some people are confused, some people are just not quite understanding what is going on regarding the whole power scaling of Gas in comparison to his battle that he had with Bardock and where his power was then, and how does it all make sense, and what's happening here of Granolah getting stomped, and there's just a lot of questions out there, so we definitely got to break down what's going on. But for the most part, the latest offering from Dragon Ball Super was straight up just action. So this is stuff that when it comes time for the anime, God willing, it is 2D animation and not 3D. Oh my god. Let's be clear that Toei, they're not doing Arcane levels, okay? They're not there yet. I just want to throw that in there as well before people think that, oh, Arcane was a great 3D, offering of animation. Dragon Ball can do it. No. But yeah, really action-packed, awesome stuff went down with this one. Gas, again, just tearing it up, but also falling into a little bit of a PTSD, little trauma for the mind. Let's talk about it.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
Okay, yes, people, there are some people out there, for the most part, I don't see it to be a big deal, but yeah, there are some people that are confused just in general about the power scaling and what is going on in terms of Gas's power and where he's at right now, because straight up, this whole Broly-esque situation that's going on with Gas is definitely wild, but it all genuinely, for the most part, I would feel, makes sense, and we'll break it down. But the chapter opens up, and for the most part, nearly the entirety of the chapter is Gas versus Granolah. And I said it with the last chapter, and I'll say it again. I am very, very happy that they have decided to kind of just change it up and shake it up a little bit. Like, yeah, let me see a couple of other characters that doesn't include two of the ones that we always talk about, Goku and Vegeta, which is kind of crazy. Like, who don't want to see Goku and Vegeta throw it down? But because it's so frequent in Dragon Ball Super, and because it's like, hey, this is a new character. These are both new characters that are exclusive to the Super franchise. Let's see them in action. And considering the plot has allowed to this point of, hey, Granolah was the strongest in the universe, and now Gas made the wish, or Elect made the wish for Gas, and now he's the strongest in the universe. So that was something that I was very fond of with this chapter. The fact that, again, even though there was like maybe a little bit of, Vegeta getting kicked around and Goku triggering some PTSD in there, for the most part, they were sidelined, and it allowed for somebody else, almost a Gohan Cell Saga-esque moment of, hey, Granolah got in some dibs and actually had a pretty interesting fight. But Granolah takes it to the Naruto verse and uses Shadow Clone Jutsu. Not that Shadow Clones are exclusive to Naruto, I mean, for crying out loud. Now I think about it, Goku was using pretty much Shadow Clones. What was it? The after image technique, kind of similar in a way. Like, that's not an exclusive thing by any means, but nevertheless, I found it very, very enjoyable to watch as he used all these Shadow Clones, and it just was a common practice of, hey, the more clones you make of yourself, the weaker they're all going to be, because you're essentially splitting your power, your stamina, and all that jazz. But also the after effect of it that, hey, once it's all said and done, you take the brunt of everything that happened. And thanks to his, again, I guess, strategic nature, because one of the things is that Granola's a pretty good strategist. He ultimately manages to outmaneuver Gas and blast him off, sending him flying, which it had a double spread that looked really awesome, of Granolah blasting Gas in the chest. I was like, okay, all right, Toyotaro, I'm liking this vibe, fam. The art looking pretty spicy, if I do say so myself. And then once Elect showed up, I was like, oh, snap. So, hey, we're recreating Broly, because I'm not even gonna lie, and was it the same scenario with the return of Broly? I can't remember if it was the same scenario. I know it was something slightly different with the whole control of Broly, but what happened with Elect taking off the bracelet that is around, it's not even a bracelet, what do you call that thing? Basically the string of bones, which I can't find the right word to call it or whatnot, but taking that from around his head, Gas's head, ultimately was something that allowed him to get vicious and lose control and become really, really strong, which was very reminiscent of Broly. But ultimately Elect removes the thingy-majig, the string of bones from around Gas's head, and he loses loses it and goes buck wild. So again, I am gonna lie, they straight up took that from back when, Broly and Paragus, how Paragus had to keep Broly at bay, because ultimately if not, Broly would go insane and, go ridiculously strong, but out of control. Like, you couldn't control him and he couldn't control himself. And that was pretty much the same scenario. So I'm not even gonna lie, like, I wonder why they did that, considering this arc, if anything, felt so perfect, especially early on. Maybe not so much now, because like Granola's vengeance against the Saiyans is kind of like already dead at this particular point. But this arc screamed and made me believe we were going to see Broly again. It made me believe we were going to see Frieza. It made me believe it was just going to be so much more diving into returning of people from, that whole story, that whole scenario of the Saiyans and Frieza and everything like that. So they were like, okay, we're not going to include Broly in this, but we're going to just borrow some elements of him not being able to control himself and having that, necklace and all that jazz. Like, we're just going to reuse those elements, but we're not going to actually include Broly, which would have made sense because it was all vengeance against Saiyans. Like, just quickly to add in a little bit of headcanon, because why not? It would have been kind of dope if Granolah would have slowly started his vengeance against the Saiyans. Of maybe he first targeted Vegeta's brother. He found some way to find out about Tarble, and he went and he took out Tarble, or, either killed him or severely hurt him, and Tarble just barely managed to get away. Then boom, next thing you know, Granolah makes his way to Earth, damn near almost wipes out everybody on Earth, fighting Gohan, and absolutely massacres Gohan, because why not? It's not like they're gonna ever really give Gohan that moment that he deserves. Well, maybe they might do it in the superheroes film just to lure us in to watch that 3D shit, but okay. And then ultimately, he arrives at Goku and Vegeta, or even before that, maybe Broly, something like that. It could have been a steady build up to all of this, and then maybe throw the heaters in at the, 9th hour or whatnot. But they're definitely very hell-bent on continuing to build up a story that we have not seen yet, and I don't know what they have planned. If it's just like, hey, it's something special, we're gonna get a full-on, flash of it at the end of the, story, at the end of the arc, or they're gonna do a whole other spin-off, or dare I say it, a film or an OVA. Like, they could do so many different things with this that people would love to watch, like an extra story of Bardock, how he fought some really strong dudes. But ultimately, they basically, I want to say it's Elec, and when he removed it, it was said that he lost control the last time they did that, like 40 years ago, and it was 40 years ago that the whole encounter with Bardock happened. So that was the last time that Gas even attempted to take that off, and it was kind of like a last-ditch effort, because he can't control himself once that amulet is removed from his head. Again, pretty much essentially Broly. He even bulks up and looks like a monster, and I ain't gonna lie, I really like the bulked up design. I was like, oh shit, it brings me back to the old days where characters could actually get brolic and muscular, and not just like everything has to be slimmed down and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of dope. It was short-lived, and it only lasted, I don't know, maybe a handful or so of pages before it reverted back towards the end, but I really rock with that. It just looked really dope, him with the dreads and the muscles and shit. I was like, this dude is a monster, and I rock with it. It's awesome. And Monaito, which I'm not even gonna lie, as we continue through the story, I almost feel like, to a certain degree, Monaito is only useful for hyping things up, and then after that, he's just pretty much useless, because he's like, oh yes, that's the same form he took 40 years ago when he fought against Bardock, and then it's a little later in the chapter that Vegeta's like, oh, okay, so how did that fight ended? I don't know, I was, knocked out, I was unconscious. Like, so fam, you couldn't heal anybody up, you couldn't do that. You can't give us any intel, just like a little teasing, like he's a cot tease, so to speak, but you can't really give any intel as to, hey, how did the whole thing end with Bardock and whatnot. So what good are you, Monaito? What good are you other than to say, hey, I know something, let me tell you, it started with, and then just cut off. Like, Monaito is he's there, I guess, right? He's there. Well, why not? But upon bulking up into that form, essentially, it looks like he, again, has lost it. So think Broly, think Kale, those giant muscular forms that they lose control. And he just starts pulverizing Granolah. And I'm not even gonna lie, I was like, god damn, he could really kill him right now. Like, he's smashing his head into the concrete ground like an animal. He even goes as far as, because again, he lost total freaking control, to attack the heaters. Like, yeah, dude is just really went off the rails. And it's kind of crazy because, again, they made the wish already. Like, he's supposed to be the strongest in the universe, and he's having trouble controlling himself at that particular point as well. Although you could throw the argument, well, yeah, if you're the strongest in the universe, you're gonna have a tough time controlling that strength, especially considering he just acquired it. And I love it because it looks like from here on out, I don't think Goku or Vegeta, but especially Vegeta, is gonna have any more awesome ultra ego-esque moments, because following, pounding the crap out of Granolah, he goes and takes a couple swibs at Vegeta, and I'm like, ah, yes, we're at that point in the arc. You know, like when Kid Buu was beating the dog tar out of Vegeta and he was trying to give Goku that 60 seconds back in the Kid Buu arc. We're at that point now where it's just gonna be, let's pummel Vegeta from time to time to make a point that this dude is really strong. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want to start falling back into the bashing like they're doing Vegeta dirty, because in terms of character development, in terms of just showcasing how far this character has come from the days of the Saiyan saga, from the days of even the Babidi situation, Majin Vegeta, to where he's at right now, he's at a different level. He's a man, okay? He's a real man, a true, honest to blue man that is stands firm on all 10, and yeah, he's character-wise really up there, you know, one of the best of Dragon Ball Super. But in terms of, you know, physical capabilities and whatnot, yeah, he reverts to punching bag, although just not as bad as what happened with Granolah, who was just a few minutes ago the strongest in the universe, getting his head cracked in. But Goku charges in on gas, and upon doing so, he triggers his PTSD, because it brings us into some flashback panels of when Bardock was fighting him, when he had lost his mind, taking off the amulet 40 years ago, and Bardock was blasting at him. And honestly, that's one of the big discussions that the Dragon Ball fandom is having right now. Basically, how is it that Bardock was able to keep up with this guy back then, considering like he couldn't even beat Frieza? How was he fighting against somebody at this caliber? Well, for starters, you gotta automatically say, well, yeah, he's going to catch up to where Goku and Vegeta are at right now. I'm referring to Gas, because, you know, he wished to be the strongest in the universe. So that's one. Number two, I mean, for crying out loud, what do you think? He was just like twiddling his thumbs and eating, I don't know, ramen for the last 40 years? Dog was fighting and training and stuff like that. So you had 40 years of training, which, I mean, we've seen what 40 years of training has done for somebody like Goku. We've seen what 40 years of training has done for somebody like Vegeta. We've seen what freaking 40 years has done for somebody like Krillin, from being what he was in Dragon Ball to, by the end of Z, they said what he's like at what, Frieza's power level or something, like Namek Saga Frieza and stuff like that. So if that could happen with Krillin, then yes, you can apply those same rules of logic that somebody that maybe was, you know, outmaneuvered and even at his strongest going into that crazy hulking form couldn't take out Bardock, but you had 40 years and a wish to boost him to being the strongest in the universe. Yeah, I think that could kind of boost things up. So in terms of the confusion that people may have or frustration with the power scaling, I don't think it's that off. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, it does make me wonder, considering Monaito just happened to have, you know, he fell unconscious when all of it went down. How did Bardock take him out? Because I'd imagine he still had to have been somewhere in a ballpark of way stronger than Bardock at that point. But also, if Bardock, you know, he dies against Frieza later on, and it's not like he knew about, like, hey, I have a Super Saiyan transformation, then does Bardock have a form that he was even unaware of? Or maybe he fell unconscious when the form came or something like that? Are they going to try to include and make it canonical that Bardock is the legendary Super Saiyan of history, and they're going to add it in there that Bardock went Super Saiyan and maybe he didn't even realize it, or went quasi Super Saiyan? Or some people were saying, yo, look at the panels, it looks like Bardock's hair is, you know, in the Omen UI with the black hair, and I'm like, no, let's not go that far. That, I'm gonna lie, that would be terrible. Like if Bardock went Ultra Instinct, like that would be horrible. Oh my god, the quasi Super Saiyan, the Super Saiyan thing in general was like, I could buy something like that as long as I guess technically Bardock doesn't remember it, because then it would go counterintuitive to, you know, what happens with him later on against Frieza or whatnot. But maybe that could be plausible, like, hey, he went Super Saiyan and he beat a Gas that was way weaker back then. Even in his hulking crazy, oh my god, I can't control myself form, he was way weaker. Yeah, Super Saiyan Bardock, I could buy that more so than, you know, Ultra Instinct, or yeah. But again, the fact that they continuously are leaving out certain parts of what happened with Bardock back then and like building it up, I don't know if it's that they're trying to build up anticipation in general, just like, hey, come back and read the manga for Bardock fans and longtime fans of Dragon Ball, you're gonna find out what happened with Bardock. Or they're building up something bigger entirely, they're not gonna show it and they're gonna do like a spin-off manga, which, keeping it a buck, a Bardock spin-off manga would be insane. And I've said this before on Twitter, I'll say this again, considering the fact that we know nothing about Bardock's parents or Bardock's grandparents, I would love a Dragon Ball spin-off of like Bardock's father, like Goku's grandfather, essentially, that we know nothing about, we've never heard of. Obviously, Bardock had to come from somewhere, right? He shot out of somebody's wing wang, you know what I'm saying? That would be dope. It would be endless possibilities, and all we would know is that at some given point, he had a son named Bardock that had kids, and yeah. And I know, again, I'm trailing off, but these are just random thoughts that is popping into my mind that I've always wanted to say, so why not? But upon getting back to the current timeline, Goku basically blasts Gas and sends him flying after him being paused for a second there because of that PTSD again of that ass whipping that Bardock gave him 40 years ago. However, Alex's words, his big brother, so to speak, telling him like, yo, you don't remember that you swore you were never going to lose again, is enough to kind of snap him out of it. Between, again, the triggered PTSD and Alex's words, it was enough to put him to essentially awaken to a more normalized form where he goes back, he reverts back into his more adult looking form, but just normal. And I think now the horns are coming out of his face, like similar to the hulking form, because before the horns, if I'm not mistaken, were just attached to that like string of bones or whatnot. Then when he went into the hulking form, it actually grew out of his face, and then now they're just completely at his face. It's not part of the amulet or anything like that. And Goku remarks that it looks like Gas has had some sort of awakening, and Alex says, my little brother is now truly the strongest in the universe. And yeah, the battle is going to continue from there. I gotta be honest with you, for the most part, this chapter, again, a lot of action. I'll say that progression wise, we got a little bit in terms of, hey, there's another power up this time for Gas. Also, I wonder why they continue to beat around the bush when it comes to this whole Bardock flashback. Like, is it because Bardock, the mentions of him over there in Japan is just bringing in so much intrigue and people are just jumping at the magazine to read it because of this Bardock situation? Or I wonder why they're beating around it. Like, plot wise, what does it add, if any value at all, to, you know, the grand scheme of things, to just keep hiding about, oh, Monaito was passed out, we don't know how Bardock took him out. Like, also, it's clear as hell that the inspiration behind what went down with Gas, his transformation and the amulet being removed and all that jazz, essentially Elect is Paragus and Gas is Broly. And yeah, Vegeta looks like he's going to be a punching bag for the remainder of this arc. Goku's gonna keep on triggering PTSD, then it seems like it's par for the course. Honestly, right now, the one thing I would say that it has going for it very strongly is that it's very uncertain how they're going to stop this dude. Like, Goku and Vegeta were bested by Granolah, and Granolah's bested by this dude at this point, and this dude has another power-up. Granolah was already struggling against Gas prior to this awakening, and now he has this awakening on top of that. How do you come back from this other than introducing Broly, or a new transformation that they're going to show next chapter that Bardock was able to obtain, and then one of them, Goku, Vegeta, or Granolah, or somebody there is going to be able to access that, and then boom, that's how they're going to be able to take him down. Or it could be maybe one of the heaters mutters something along the lines of like, hey, it was that weakness that guy Bardock exploited 40 years ago, and then boom, again, they're gonna run with that, something along the lines of that, because right now it just feels uncertain unless we go down the typical fusion, the Potara earrings or something like that. It doesn't seem like Goku and Vegeta really could do shit, and Granolah is bested as well. And your overall thoughts and expectations for the Dragon Ball Super manga with 81 and beyond. Action-packed chapter, slow on the progression, but for the most part we got a few tidbits there. And again, it's like they really are pushing this Bardock thing. I don't know if they got bigger plans outside of just revealing it in the manga, but yeah, they want to let you know that Bardock was that dude, even though we knew that shit back in like the early 90s when we got that Bardock TV special. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Hit that bell to get all notifications. And if you want to follow any of my other social media, links are in the description below. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy. Have an awesome day. Peace in. And yeah, Bardock, he was awesome. We know. Have an awesome one. If Bardock was so strong, why didn't he beat Frieza? Well, Bardock wasn't strong enough to beat Frieza. Then how did he beat Gas? UI Goku couldn't beat Gas. This doesn't make sense. Stupid writing. How did Bardock suddenly become so strong? 40 years ago, Gas wasn't stronger than Frieza. Then how is Gas that strong suddenly? doesn't make sense. He obviously been training for 40 years, plus the wish made him the strongest mortal. The fuck you been reading, lad? But, get the fuck out me house, lad. I can't fucking deal with it any longer, mate.